Good morning, friends. It's Heather at Bush Poppy Farm. Today is Monday, and we're going to start flipping beds. It is Monday morning, and it is going to be we're having a heat wave this week, so we're expecting temperatures close to 100 degrees Fahrenheit. What is that, 40 Celsius, for the entire week through Saturday. And so I'm going to be out here early in the morning while it's still cool to try to get some work done. So we won't be doing all the jobs in a single day like I usually do. I'd like to keep things living in the soil as long as possible, so I like to do a whole bed flip in one day, pull it out, add the amendments in soil, transplant if possible, but that's not happening. So, however, I might be able to come back here tonight to transplant sunflowers because they're getting real big in their seed trays and those plugs are real small, so I don't want to stunt their growth. So I might do that. Then they'd have overnight in the nice cool air to settle in before tomorrow's high heat, but there's no way they can stay in the greenhouse this whole week. They'll just die because they're just too big to be in those plug trays. So I'm going to try to clear 2 beds this morning. We'll see how fast I can do it. Basically, I'm just going to cut everything off at the soil level and put that in just a compost pile that will break down pretty rapidly. And then tomorrow or tonight, depends on how the weather goes, because we tend to, when we have these heat waves, it tends to be hottest between like 2 and 5. And then it starts to cool down a little bit. So we'll see. But then we'll put soil down, put the irrigation back down, and transplant. So hoping it all goes well. Now, the other thing that I'm going to do today is move traps around, and then this evening come back out and spread around Repelzol, which is a granulated garlic and other stuff that supposedly rodents hate. It does work if you use it repeatedly and you use it when the populations are small. Once you have a population explosion, almost no deterrent works because there's just so many of them. But this deterrent has worked for me in the past, and so I'm going to use it again. I meant to bring it out this morning, but you know, it's 7 a.m. and I'm not 100% awake. So, okay, let me go reset traps and stuff and see where I stand on that, and then we will start clearing these beds. Okay, most of that didn't get filmed because the camera ran out of battery. So I put a new battery in and I'll show you what I did. First of all, I narrowed the pathway again because so much of the wood chips had gone on both beds. So this bed is normal size again, and this bed is mostly normal size again. I pulled it back on that side as well. It's hard to see because the soil looks the same as the wood chips, but I've pulled everything out and I will be now, I'm going to leave here now because it's starting to get really hot. And I'm going to go get all the bags of soil that I need to cover this all with soil, give it a nice deep layer of fresh soil. And then the sunflowers are going to go in this bed. Now, I'm anxious, but I'm also, when I buy the soil, I'm also going to buy about 40 new mousetraps. And I'm just going to pepper this place. So the firmament, the Cynoglossum, that got seeds everywhere, and they are the little Velcro seeds. So it's these little guys, and they just stick to everything, which is fine. They don't hurt, but they were all over me, which means they're all over here, which means at some point we're going to have lots of Cynoglossum popping up, but that's okay. Where it pops up and it's okay to keep it, I'll keep it. But I think having sunflowers in this bed will inhibit the germination of those seeds. And generally, this plant Cynoglossum is a cool hardy annual. So it's not probably going to germinate in 100+ temperature. So I'm not too concerned about that. But yeah, so I want to go pick up the soil, and then I'll come back this evening, put the soil down, and then transplant all of the sunflowers and lay out a ton of traps, as well as the Repelsol to hopefully keep the mice away. And you know, if the sunflowers can just get big enough, then nothing really bothers them. But right now they're about that tall, and they need to get out of those trays. So I don't have a choice. So tomorrow morning, I need to come and harvest, and I don't have a lot to harvest. I think it's going to be another Lisianthus mason jar day with maybe a little bit of status because those are shorter, and maybe the last of the straw flower. And then I will clear this bed, except for the feverfew on either end. I'm sorry, the feverfew here and the status down there, that stays. And then this is where the other tray of sunflowers will go. And then I'm going to put the remaining zinnias that need to come out here, even though it's risky. So far, these zinnias here are surviving, which means they haven't found them yet. And so I will just, again, pepper the place with traps and repellent and hope for the best. But one thing I do want to address is that these beds on this end don't seem to be getting as much water as they should. So I either need to up the time that this section of the farm gets water, which is a separate zone than the lower beds, or we have a pressure problem and there's not enough pressure to get water down here. So I got to figure out what's going on with that. If it's a pressure thing, there's not a whole lot I can do to fix that, unfortunately. But we'll see. Okay, so we'll come back here tonight and try to finish this project up. Okay, lovely friends, it is the next morning. We did come out here as a family and work a little bit last night. Not transplanting though, and I'll tell you why. So yesterday, once I ended the video, as I was driving past the water source. So if you're new here, the water source for my farm is well over 1,000 feet away up by the goat shed. It is just a spigot. Turn it, it's attached to the timer and all that stuff, and 2 zones to water the farm. So the water there's a mama deer right over here. So the water has to travel like 1,200 feet to get just to the beginning of the farm, and then it's got another 400 feet to go to, fill out the whole thing, even though it's on 2 zones. So it's a long distance to travel. And the pressure at the hose bib is 40 psi. Now you need between 10 and 30 psi for drip irrigation. So when we went to install, we had no idea if, when we originally set up the farm, if there was going to be enough pressure coming from way down there, or way up there, because it's slightly uphill, to make it down here. So when we used our pressure gauge and we tested, we ended up having about 35 psi, which is perfect. That's great, because when you set up the drip and you put a pressure regulator on, you're all good. So it worked great up until recently. I'd been noticing that these beds right here, that these beds weren't really getting that much water. And you can see kind of like the plants are doing great way down there, but then they kind of peter out here. And a lot of them, some of them got eaten, but some of them also just dried up. And so when I was clearing this bed out yesterday, I noticed that the soil was just bone dry. There was no water in it at all. So when I left here yesterday, I stopped at the goat shed and I turned on the water for this zone. And I thought, I should just go back and check. Let's just see, is it running at all? So I drove back down here and I walked out and nothing. There was a tiny bit of water trickling at the top over there where the header is. And that was it. So I thought, gosh, I have to fix this. Obviously, we're going into a heat wave. And even though there's only a few plants left in here, they have to have water. So I walked the whole line, picking up and checking for leaks the whole way, because the line actually runs on the surface on the hillside, all the way here from the spigot from the goat shed. And I couldn't find anything. I couldn't find any reason for why it wouldn't be running. And closer to the spigot, I could feel it. It was nice and cold in the tube, and it was running. I could feel the vibration. So I knew the water was going into the tube from the spigot, but for some reason it wasn't making it here. So I went home and I did a bunch of research because I was stressing. I was like, no, one more thing, please, not one more thing. And I came up, there was a couple things. Like, there's lots of ways to reduce the pressure in your irrigation systems. Pressure reducers work amazingly well, and you can even set up multiple ones of those along your line if you're running a really long line to control the pressure, right? So, but if you don't have any pressure, that's a lot harder to solve. So after dinner, it was still like 95 degrees, but it was better because it was not direct sun. I mean, the sun was down behind the mountain over here. We all came out. Aiden stayed up by the goat shed to turn on and off the water. Mike and Dylan walked the line, and then I came down here and we found a kink in the hose, in the mainline tubing. And so once we straightened that kink out, then the water came. But we still were not getting enough pressure to make all the way to the ends of these beds. So what we've done is we've created kind of a box around these beds. So the way this system is set up right now, okay, we've got two main lines here. The one in the back runs out to the far end of the farm, and that waters everything down there. And this one right here ends right there, and it has two T-intersections on it. So this one here runs along the top of these beds, and the drip tape is attached to them. You can see it right here. And the water flows down. This is a slight downhill here, so the water flows down through these beds. And these beds have been getting plenty of water the whole time. The other T-intersection runs along here, like you can see right here. And it feeds these lines. Now, there is a slight uphill. It's so slight you can't see it on camera at all, and you can barely feel it when you're walking. But it was just enough that with lower pressure, the water couldn't make it all the way up here. So what was suggested by other farmers was that you create a closed system by running another header here, which we did last night. We attached it up there, and now we've got this header here. And we took the drip tape that's attached on the other end and attached it here as well. So when the water comes on, it's all pressurized. Now there's nothing attached on these two beds because we don't have anything in them right now. And it ends right here. It's crimped off right there. Some people will connect this, go all the way that way and connect it to the other end, but we decided not to do that. So this system brings water down this way and that way and fills these lines. And if there's going to be low pressure anywhere, it might be a little bit in the middle of the bed, but for the most part, the whole bed gets the water. And so we ran it last night and tested it, and you can see the ground is damp. So I think we've resolved our problem, which is a huge, huge relief, because I do need to transplant sunflowers into this bed that I cleared. There was no way they were going to survive if they didn't have water. So now that we know that that works, I did run it for a long time last night, so that because it's been dry for so long, it was hydrophobic. So I'm hoping that it'll be ready for transplant, probably not even tonight. So I was going to transplant tonight. Actually, I was going to do it last night. But today, the projected forecast high is 107 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 41, almost 42 Celsius. And putting transplants out here at that's just ridiculous. They're better off in the greenhouse where I can keep them wet in a tray. So this morning, because it's already hot and it's only 7 a.m., I'm going to harvest for the CSA. And I might start on pulling some of this other bed apart, but probably not. I think I'm going to head home and just do indoor work today because it's going to be really hot. I also need to get ice for the chickens because they need to have some cold water to drink. But I think for the most part, we are safe out here water-wise, which is what we really needed. So Aiden also came down and used the rodent repellent everywhere. He saturated the areas, especially down there where the zinnias have been decimated, with Repelzol, which is a garlic, granulated dried garlic repellent. Actually smells really good. It smells like garlic out here. And I'm going to buy even more today and just saturate the area. Rodent repellents aren't foolproof by any means. The only foolproof thing is trapping them, because that's an instant kill. They don't then if you use poison, then they don't take the poison to another animal. And the poison can take days to kill them. It's a really horrible death. So snap traps really are the best way to go because it's instant. And the repellents, they work with a smaller population, like I said before. So I'm just going to keep using them, keep getting more traps and setting them out and moving the traps around until I catch things. And for the most part, I've written off those zinnias. There's nothing really left. I am going to monitor closely the dahlias and the mums because I really need those to stay alive until they bloom and I can harvest them. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and harvest. I think we're doing Lisianthus and maybe some Bells of Ireland. I'm not going to do a mason jar arrangement, but there'll be shorter arrangements, but that's okay. We'll just wrap them in craft paper and they'll still be very pretty. I do want to share something with you though. The pollinator garden is going in through yet another phase. So last week I came and I deadheaded all the calendula. So that part's looking rough. I also had to pull out a lot of the borage, because borage tends to get kind of rough mid-season. So I had to not pull out, just pull off and trim back. It'll come back. But the Rudbeckia are blooming right now. So they look so pretty. Look how many stems. This is one plant right here. You can see, this is where I deadheaded the calendula, and the borage those stems get heavy and they snap off. So I have more to clean up here. As long as I can keep it clean, then the other plants will keep coming through. They're getting plenty of water. But so pretty. Look at this Rudbeckia. I'm tempted to use it in bouquets, but I hate the idea of cutting it just because it's so pretty to see. Yeah, super pretty. And still the verbena just still pumping out those blooms, and we've got salvias on either side. So I'm very, very pleased with this little pollinator patch, and I definitely want to extend it. Because I cut so many flowers off of my crop list for future planting for next year. I still have a lot of seeds of flowers that I'm just not going to use for general crops. And I think what I'm going to do is just, put a couple more pollinator beds and fill those with those flowers, because that way I can use the seed. The flowers will be there if I want to harvest them, and I won't really have to put like mental energy into them. They'll be there if they're there, and if they're not, no big deal. It won't be like considered a crop loss. So, all right, I can feel the sun is already really hot, so I'm going to start harvesting, and then we'll wrap up this video by checking out how everything is doing down there. Well, kind of a meager harvest, honestly, and so every trap that I set gets sprung, but nothing's in it, and more dahlias are gone. So I may not get any dahlias this year. The whole thing might be gone. I mean, a few of them might survive, but this is bad. Yeah, I mean, like I said, all I can do is keep doing what I'm doing, but it's really frustrating. And a lot of the mums are missing. So like every hole used to have a mum in it. And the ones that are here, you can see, are starting to be chewed. So all this granular stuff is the garlic. I don't think it's helping at all. And look at this devastation of the zinnias. That's why I've pretty much said, oh well, no zinnias this year. And another trap that got sprung, but didn't catch anybody. The way I'm placing the traps is how they are recommended to be placed, which is you open the trap, you don't bait it, you set it literally at the entrance of their run, so when they come out, they step on it. That worked the first 2 days. Since then, it hasn't done anything. So I don't know, maybe we're dealing with a different animal at this point. I have rat traps too, which are bigger, so maybe I'll just pepper the place with both. But I gotta tell you, I think I'm not gonna have much of a mum harvest either, because so many of them are missing. And the ones that are still here are gonna fight to survive. Yeah, I told my husband yesterday, what's hard about this year is that generally, when I come out and to do farm work, and it's been this way for years, I am excited and I look forward to it, and being out, at the farm and harvesting and working and cutting, weeding, all that hard stuff, moving compost, all of that fills me with joy. But this season, generally when I come out here with so much destruction from animals that I can't seem to control, I leave depressed and angry, and that sucks. That's not how I want the most peaceful part of my life to be. And that's not saying that I don't have peace and love with my husband and my kids. I totally do. But this is like sanctuary to me, because I'm out here by myself. I'm a very introverted person, which is why I don't have a big customer-facing business. I treasure my quiet time out here, and so it's tainted. I'm really hoping that I can move past this, find some peace with it. This morning I was telling myself, the benefits of having all these pests is that means you have a robust ecosystem. Sure, that's great. I like a robust ecosystem, but I also like to be able to grow the plants that I'm growing without having them all be destroyed. You expect to lose a few, but you don't expect to lose entire rows of plants. 75% of the ranunculus harvest was gone. It's now looking like 75 to 80% of the zinnias are gone. The mums are still months away, and they're disappearing by the day. So yeah, super challenging and frustrating, and I don't really know what to do. I'm thinking about, we do have a game camera, so maybe I'll ask Mike if he can set it up out here, and we'll see what shows up overnight, because, I did see voles actively running around during the day. I know they're here. And I trapped a bunch the first 2 days, but nothing since. And since all the other traps have been sprung but hasn't caught anything, maybe it's something bigger. So maybe it would be good to set a game camera and see what's coming out here and destroying things. It could be rats. So I'm sorry, I'm being a Debbie Downer. Just I'm feeling down. All right, guys, with that, it's real hot out here. I need to get home. I'm standing in the shade because it's slightly better. I need to get home and water all the plants that are in need to make it through the day. Thank you for hanging out with me today and every day that you join me. I hope you guys have a wonderful time in your garden and you're enjoying your summer. Or if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, you're enjoying your winter. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.